Hi everyone, my name is Kingsley Doko and I want to welcome you to this video. In this video we want to start looking at remote access VPNs. As you can see, boldly written here. And if you've been following me with the videos, you probably know the history of this topology. This topology you have here is we already have VPNs running between these different locations. As you can see, we have the London DC, we have the Frankfurt DC, and then we have the New York City data center, right? And from London to New York City, we have site-to-site running. And then from London DC to Frankfurt DC, we also have site-to-site VPN running. And then we also look at some use cases where you have overlapping subnets, right? So we came up with a solution on how to solve issues when you have overlapping subnets. So it could be between you and another third-party company that you want to set up site-to-site VPN with, and then you discover there's an overlap. What do you do to resolve? What solutions are available? We've implemented that. If you are not part of that video, you can just go back to my channel and then you see videos relating to overlapping subnets. Then we also did things related to help pinning, right? Because we said Frankfurt DC, this server needs to talk to the New York City server, and then the traffic has to come to London DC, and then helping the traffic to the New York City DC. We also tested that; it worked successfully. So as we are now, the current state is all the servers have reachability with each other. These servers have reachability. Traffic comes through the London DC. Similarly, these servers have connectivity to the New York City DC and Frankfurt DC. We tested all this and it's working fine. So if you want to figure out how we implemented those, then you can go back and check the videos that we have. But for this video, or for this section, the focus is on remote access VPN now, right? Because let's say we are done with setting up the infrastructure and everything. And now what we want to start looking at is for users who are possibly working from home that needs to actually access the applications and the assets and resources that are running on these servers, right? In our use case, we have 3 departments here. We have the marketing, we have the finance, and then we have the infrastructure team. Probably we are part of this team, right? We are network engineers. So what we need to do now, or the task we are given, is to ensure that these users that are working from home are able to access all these resources available on the network, right? So that's the task. So we have our manager. Our manager called us to his office, and we are given this task as network design engineers, or network design and implementation engineers, right? So here's the use case for finance. Finance is a very very sensitive department because it deals with a lot of money for the company, which is very important. So our manager asks us that for this user, right, so long he's connected to the corporate laptop, right, the office laptop, right, all his traffic should come to the corporate network, which is the London DC, right? So these are finance servers. So these servers in London DC belongs to finance. So this user should be able to access the servers, right? And then if he also needs to go to the internet, the traffic still have to come through this VPN to the ASA, and then from here the traffic goes out to the internet, right? So traffic from the internet does not directly come to this user. It has to first of all come to the ASA before going back to the user, right? So that's 2 implementation, right? Then this finance user should not have access to Frankfurt DC or New York City DC. Whatever applications are running here, he has no business here, right? So Finance should not have access to these servers, but he should have access to these servers, and he should also be able to go to the internet. He should not be able to go to the internet directly from his home, whatever he's using, whether it's fiber or radio or modem. No, all the traffic has to come to the HQ and go to the internet. That's our first use case. And that is going to be the focus of this video. The other use case is marketing, right? Marketing, we're going to implement split tunneling for them. So if they want to go straight to the internet from their home, they can do that, right? But this is fine. This is marketing server, right? It's residing in Frankfurt data center. So if he needs to access the resources in this server, then he has to come through the VPN to the HQ, and then the traffic will helping the traffic back to Frankfurt DC, right? So what that means is marketing, this is their resource, and that is the only thing they are allowed to access on the corporate network. They should not be able to access finance, neither should they be able to access servers in New York City, DC, right? And then the last one is the infrastructure team. These guys does not really, so the infrastructure team, let's just say this is their server in New York City, and this is not their server. Let's just say for infrastructure team, they should have access to every servers on the network, at least at layer 3, not necessarily access to the applications, right? But at least layer 3 connectivity to each of these servers, because I mean they are the infrastructure, they should be able to reach any equipment on the network, right? So that's what we're going to do. So we end up implementing split tunneling for them as well, right? Now for this implementation, we're going to we'll start with the CLI. So working from the CLI is a bit not so easy. Let me not use the word difficult, but not so easy, especially if it's your first time of working on remote access VPN on the Cisco ASA. But we're going to walk through it step by step, and you're going to see the various building blocks for the remote access VPN. So what we're going to do is for finance, right? What the implementation we have, we're going to do everything from the CLI. You're going to see it work. For marketing, we also do it from the CLI. Here we do split tunneling. Here we're tunneling everything. And then for infrastructure team, we're going to use the ESDM, right? So this video will end up being, we'll probably have part 1, part 2, part 3, right? And each of the part, we're going to look at the different department and work on the solution or the task that we are given. Okay, so that's it. So let's go to the, this is just the network diagram. So this is the if topology that I'm going to be using. This server is not it's not turned on, so I'm just going to turn it up now. Okay, so what we just need to do is to consult to the ASA, right? So here is our main focus. These ASAs are in active standby mode, right? Maybe if we have time, we can test failover and see what happens to the VPN if it's going to drop. Because they're stateful replications, so there shouldn't really be any impact when any of the ASA reloads or there's an impact. Okay, so I'm going to console the primary. That's a primary ASA. So this is where we'll be doing all our configuration, right? And then for the remote users, we're just going to be using a Windows. So this is finance, right? So this is actually Windows 10, I think, or is it Windows 11? I'm not sure. Okay, it's Windows 11. I'm just running a validation copy for the test. So how do we get this laptop to talk to the devices? Is very easy. This cloud here actually represents my laptop, right? So just look at it. This is the interface on my laptop, right? So the VM is somewhere here, right? And it connects to this NIC. This ASAs as well connects to this NIC. So what that means is the entire subnet for this public interface is actually also on is where the VM is, right? I'm just bridging into the physical NIC. That's VMware Workstation. If you're familiar, you should know what that is. So from the laptop, I'm able to ping the so-called public IPs on this ASA, although it's actually a private IP, but Yeah, you know how it is. Okay, so I'm going to show you later if it's not that clear, but this is a London firewall, right? And that is where all the traffic should come to. So as you can see, this is the active firewall based on the diagram. Okay, so let's get started. So now Cisco gives us some hints on how to configure remote access VPN. If you want to see that the hint or the like a guide, you do VPN setup in the global mode. VPN setup. It gives you the option. I'm going to say SSL remote access, and then I'm going to say steps. Okay, so Cisco kind of gives you the step on what to do on how to configure the remote access VPN. So as you can see, yeah. So basically you have your interfaces, your inside and outside. We already have that running. And then you have the web VPN, right? So on the web VPN, you need to enable it on the outside interface. And then of course, the default track should already be on the ASA, especially if it's in production. So the two most important configuration we need is the tunnel group, and the tunnel group has the group policy applied to it, right? So we're going to create a tunnel group. That tunnel group is similar to CryptoMap in your legacy iOS, right? So this tunnel group is what actually defines the department, right? It's like the connection, the profile for each of the department, right? So you're going to have one tunnel group per department, right? So, and what determines how you connect through this tunnel group is defined by the group policy. Okay, so those are really the two most important configuration that we need to do, right? And then we're going to look at how we can tie the various pieces you see here to either the tunnel group or the group policy. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to copy this, right? And grab my notepad. Let me look for the notepad. So this is my notepad here. So I'm just going to paste it there. Okay, so we can start modifying it from here, right? So for the web VPN, so this is the web VPN interface. So I'm just going to leave it as enabled outside, right? Now if you come down, there's still some additional configuration for the web VPN, such as this. I'm not sure why they did not put it in the same place. So we'll paste this here, and then there's also the enable, right? And put it here. So that's the web VPN interface. This web VPN interface is really like the GUI. It's what determines how you connect, right? So if you're coming with AnyConnect, either AnyConnect or you're doing client-led SSL, right? Either from the browser, the configuration, the parameters you configure, they determine how you connect, right? Like you see, this image is a Windows image. You can have Mac OS image. We're going to talk about this in the later. So let's just focus. Let's do them step by step. So here, the tunnel group. Okay. So for the tunnel group, we're just going to, so for our current setup, we are doing it for finance. So we can just simply call it finance VPN. In production, this is probably not a good idea because you want to probably use an alias, maybe like something that doesn't relate to what the department actually is, because if the network is compromised, then it's easy, the description just leads them to the finance department, right? So you probably want to use a name that is much more obscured. Okay, so for the tunnel, there's always you need to configure the local. So this authentication is what determines how. So if a user connects to this tunnel group or this connection profile, how do they get authenticated, right? So if we had radius, we'll probably put radius here, right? And then we configure our AAA configurations to say, okay, if they come through this connection, send the authentication request to the radio server, and then we get the feedback from the radio server. But in our design, we don't have radios here. Probably something in the future, maybe we can set up ICE and then see how we can actually authenticate remote access VPN user. But for this scenario that we are demonstrating, we're just going to use the local database. Right now, before you do that, you need to create a user. So here, let's just call them finance user. Finance is okay. So here it's good to be also finance. Okay, and then service type is remote access, right? So this is very important. So it doesn't mean if you don't put remote access here, they won't be able to authenticate with these credentials. But I mean, it's either they are remote access or they are admin, right? But you don't want to give them an admin right here, because that means if they are connected to the VPN, they will be able to log into the ASA itself, right? They will have shell access, but we don't want that. They are remote access users, so they won't be able to log in. They won't be able to log into the ASA with these credentials if you add it as remote access, okay? So I'm just going to put a password here of just any password really. So I'm just going to say deep sky. Yeah, so we're done with creating the user. Then the next thing is we've already done these parts. Okay, so we need to create a pool, right? So I'll explain what this pool does. So when you are connected to the VPN, the laptop will be assigned an IP, right? And the IP comes from this pool that we create. So we call it finance pool. Okay. So I'm going to use a subnet here. I'm just going to use a subnet that doesn't overlap, right? So it's going to be 50.1, right? So 50.1 to 50.254. That's about 254 users, right? So here we don't need to include the network and broadcast addresses. We've already copied these, and then the group policy. Okay, so now we need to also add the group policy. So I'm just going to call it finance group policy. Just call it finance policy. Okay, just copy this and put it here. Okay, and the tunnel protocol we are using is going to be, so this is for the AnyConnect. I think this is for the clientless, which is when you are coming from the browser. So that was what I was trying to explain here, that what this really do is controls how the browser is going to look like. And if you're also coming with AnyConnect, it determines how you authenticate and all of that. So in that case, we are not doing clientless, we are doing the SVC. Of course, this configuration has changed. We no longer use SVC. We're going to see the new syntax when we configure. Okay, so at the basic level, I think this is what we need to do. So we're just going to start grabbing them one after the other. So let's start with the web VPN. Now for the web VPN, this image was what we copied from the ASA, right? It's not really what we have. It's not actually what we have. So you need to specify the actual image you copied. Could be, the syntax is going to be the same, but the image, of course, will be, maybe we have a newer version. So for me, I've already gone ahead to get an AnyConnect image, right? It's something you can get from Cisco if you have a service contract or what they call it, right? You can download it directly from Cisco website, especially for production. But for test lab, I think for this lab, I think if you also go to the internet and just poke around, you should be able to grab something you can use for this lab. But for production, of course, you want to use images directly from Cisco, that you can be sure that it hasn't been compromised. Okay, so if I do show disk0, right? So as you can see, this is my own image that I copied, right, to the ASA, and I also copied the ASDM. I think I did them both at the same time, but I mean, ASDM is a topic for another day. So I'm just going to copy this now and put it here, because that is what we really need here. Okay. Yeah, that's what we need. So if you're thinking, how did I get this image here? It's very easy. You copy it through TFTP, right? I don't know if I should be explaining that here, especially for newcomers. So I have TFTP running, right? And the file is on my personal computer. I need to, let's say, close our windows. Let me show you the file. So on my desktop, okay, so this is the image on my desktop, actually, right? It's not this. Let me delete this. So this is the image. See, I have an image for Mac OS. I have image for Windows. There's also image for Linux. But in this lab, we're just going to be using the window for the setup. So what you basically do is you grab your TFTP and you point to the location, which in this case is this folder, as you can see. So I'm going to hit OK. Then I'm going to say show. Then I'm also going to point to the IP that I'm using. I think even if you don't specify it, it's going to automatically, because the TFTP server is actually listening. So it's going to see request. But you can also pick the IP, which is 192.168.1.86. You see it's the same IP with this topology. So it's the public, more like the public interface of the laptop that is connected to this NIC. So all you just now need to do is to say copy TFTP, right? And then you point to the IP 192.168.1. It's 86, but I'm going to say 87 because I don't want to copy it actually. Then you can, just point to the image, right? If you go back to the TFTP, you see if I do show directory, you see the image is here, right? So when I point to it, the TFTP is going to automatically detect the image. Then I can say I want to drag it to disk0, right? And yeah, so it's going to automatically detect and see the image, and if you really want to continue, you can continue. In my case, do you want to overwrite? I'll say no. Okay, so we don't want to copy, but that's really the process of getting the image into your ASA for folks who don't know how to do that. Okay, so let's continue. So we want to start the configuration now, right? So we said we want to start with the web VPN. So I'm just going to grab this. So copy web VPN is outside. So it says web VPN and DTLS are enabled. DTLS, so SSL, I mean, the remote access VPN uses SSL, right? Or TLS, which is transport layer security. I think DTLS stands for transport layer security for maybe UDP. I'm not sure. Right? So automatically, so what this really does is enabling port 443 on the public interface. And then let's specify the image. Now the SVC is no longer supported. For example, if I say SVC, the question mark is not supported. Rather, the new command is AnyConnect, right? So just take note of that. This is a newer version, and most of this configuration is actually for the ODSA. Okay, so we're going to wait a bit for it to process, and then we're going to go back and say AnyConnect, then enable, right? So we say show run web VPN. So as you can see, let me expand this. Okay, so this is at the basic level, this is the configuration. Now these other configs are there by default. We don't need to change them. Maybe we'll come back later and think of maybe there are things we still need to add. We'll figure that out. The next thing is to create a pool. We've already, so I'm just going to copy this, go to the global mode, and then, right, so show run pipe include pool. So the pool is there. Now we need to create the group policy. So we'll create a group policy because, yeah, we can create the tunnel group first because, and then tie in the group policy once it's configured. Okay. So config T. So it says warning local database is empty. Use the username command to define the local user. So we ought to actually create the user first before the tunnel. So if I say show run tunnel group, it's there. As you can see, these ones that we have, if you were following the previous videos, are for the site-to-site VPNs. So let's create a user. Now you might not be able to see this configuration here because this is actually the default. If you don't specify radius, then it defaults to local. So let's create a user. Yeah. So the user is created. Should run username. Okay. So the user has been created. Next is to create the group policy. So this SVC is also not supported anymore. So you're going to see that it's going to throw an error if we should say. So we say VPN protocol. So if you do a question mark, you see what the new name is actually the SSL, right? And even the web VPN that was here is not also there anymore. So we just specify. So we say show run group policy. Right, so the group policy created. So what we now need to do is to tie the group policy to the tunnel group. Very straightforward. So show run tunnel group. So I'm going to say for this tunnel group, so we just come back here. So under the attributes, what am I doing? So config T, under the attribute, then we say default group policy. Then we can now point to the group policy that we just created, which is finance policy. Okay. So at the basic level, I think we've configured everything that we need to do, but then we need to start looking at are there additional options that we need to do. For example, we said, my bad. So for example, we said for the finance, right? All their traffic needs to come to where? London DC, ASA, right? And then if they are going to the internet, it can go out to the internet. And then they also need access to these servers, right? So we need to do the tweaking under the group policy, right? And to make sure that it's to implement that, right? So let's go back to the group policy. We've already tied the group policy to the tunnel group. So now the command is show run or group policy, right? So now there's a default policy that is on the ASA, right? This is the one we just created below here, right? But for the default, which is here, if you don't specify any policy, it's the tunnel group automatically inherits this. So we need to review this policy and see if there are things here we can, picked out, select, and then add it to our own custom policy. Okay, so I'm just going to put it here. It's really a long config, but we just quickly walk through everything. So here you see this. So this is the default group policy, the attributes. So banner, we are not interested in banner, we are not interested in DHCP, VPN access hour. This is probably for maybe you have contractors working within your corporate network and they need to have access at specific date and time or hours, maybe 8 a.m. to 5 or 4 a.m. or 5 p.m. in every day. So you can create a tunnel group for those contractors and then define their access periods. But we don't need that. Simultaneous login, you probably want to increase this if it's production. So yeah, we need the VPN filter, right? So this is access list for VPNs. Okay, you know we have access list for physical interfaces, but by default the ASA does not use the access list on the interface to filter VPN traffic, because there's a command that I'm going to show you the command later, right? I think it's sysopt connection permit VPN. So interface access list does not really apply to VPN traffic, okay? But if we now want to actually apply access list to the VPN, this is where we can do it. So we are going to create an access list and we are going to tie it to this VPN filter. We're not doing it for IPv6. We are not doing any of this. So another very important parameter we need to configure is the group lock. The group lock is what allows you to lock users to a specific tunnel, right? So if you are finance, you can only log into the VPN through the finance profile. You shouldn't be coming in with marketing. You shouldn't be coming in with an infrastructure team or any other team, right? This is where we can lock them down. Now for this to work, we need to tie this grid lock to, I'm going to show you how it works. Hopefully we have enough time to do that, right? And then here, PFS, IPSI, we don't need this. I think this is when you are tunneling over UDP port 10,000, right? We are not doing that here. Split tunneling here, so we are doing this. So this is very important because we said we want to tunnel all the traffic, right? So we're going to leave this as its default, right? This is not split tunneling, rather we are tunneling everything actually. Split tunneling means you are saying for this specific IP, use the tunnel. Then if you are going to the internet, then just go straight to the internet. But that's not what we are doing here. We are saying whether you are going to the internet, whether you want to access resources within the organization, all your traffic has to go through the tunnel, right? Because on the HQ, we have robust security infrastructure set up, and then we are passing your traffic through those systems that we have to ensure you are secure, you are safe on the internet, and then your system is not compromised, or you as the user is not compromised. Okay, so split tunneling, we are not doing split tunneling. So I think at the very best, those are the things we are interested in. There are a lot of other things here, and it makes more sense if you're doing it from the user interface. So just erase this. There's the web VPN URL list. We don't need all this. On that web VPN homepage. So all these are like when you're customizing the web page portal, like the browser. That's what I was saying in the beginning, right? So we don't need all this. So we don't need all this. Yeah. So I'm just going to erase them. Upload, storage, hidden shares. We don't need all of this, any of this. AnyConnect, routing, filtering, ignore, disable, DF, ignore, disable. Yeah, we don't need all this. So I'm just going to take this out. Okay, so now we need to define an access list for the VPN. So let's go back to the topology. We said finance can access the servers, right? We've said this severally. Okay, my bad for repeating it. And we also say finance needs to go to the internet, but finance cannot access the servers. So what do you think? How do we create an access list that will achieve that? So what we need to do is first we'll create an access list. I think it's actually better to do it. Let me just specify it's actually better to do it on the CLI. So let me minimize this and say, okay, so access list here of T. So I'm going to say access list, right? Let's just call it finance ACL, right? It's going to be extended. And we're saying if you're coming from your pool, what was the pool? Let's check it again here. So when the finance is connected, they are going to be assigned an IP in this pool, right? So this automatically becomes their source IP, right? So we can say if you're coming from 192.168.50.0, right? 255.255.255.0, right? We want to allow you access to anywhere, right? For the internet. Okay, so if they are going to the internet, if the source IP is coming from this, then they can go anywhere, right? So I'm going to hit enter. We should be permit, right? So extended should be permit IP. Permit IP. Do you know what? I prefer to use object group, so I'm just going to say object group 192.168.50.0/24 object network 192.168.50.0_24, and then we say the subnet is 192.168.50.0.25.25.255.0. Okay, so in that case, I can say access list, finance is uppercase, finance ACL, permit IP if it's coming from this object, right? Sure, it's correct. Permit. Does it not? Yeah, so I need to say permit objects this, okay, to anywhere. Okay, so access list. All right, so this access list automatically allows the VPN user whose IP is going to be sourced from this to go anywhere, right? Well, that's okay, so that's good for the internet, but also remember we're also permitting them access to these servers only, right? So what we need to do is to go back to this access list and say, however, you are also allowed to, you know what, let's do show run objects. So we already have this /16 object group created, which is this. So I'm going to say here permit if it's coming from this subnet, okay, and going to this subnet. I need to add the objects to objects this. Okay, so run access list again. Yeah, so it's allowed to go anywhere, and it's also allowed to. So we need to add the deny, right? Deny should actually stay at the top. So let's look at the. It's very long. So the access list for finance, this is 1. So this should actually come to the bottom, right? Why this is 2. So the next one I'm going to create now, I'm going to say show run access list. So you know that the deny should come to the top. Otherwise, when they match this, they can actually access anything they want. So what we need to do is to create the next one. Hold on. So show run objects. So what we need to do is we need to deny them access to this subnet. Let's look at the topology. which is 172.172.16.10.0/24, and this subnet, right? We need to deny them access to this subnet, but they can access this subnet, and they also can go anywhere else, which is really the internet. Okay, so let's create the access list again. So come here. Okay, so if it's coming from this subnet, okay, and then if the destination is this subnet, right? Do you know what? Let's just allow it for now, just to be okay. No, let's deny. Okay. You know, we have to see if it's working for us before we break. So objects, well, there's a way we can test it. So to object this. Okay, so that is there as well. Then the last one is the 10.10 block, which is also already created here. So I just need to do the up arrow key and put this. Okay, show run access list. All right, so as you can see, the yeah, so this is at the top, so we'll just remove and re-add. That will take it to the bottom. Or we could have as well just specify the access list number, right? I'd like to also take this. I like the deny to be at the top. Okay, so I'm also going to no, so we can't do that. So I think it should be okay. Because if I say show access list, you're going to see, right? So this is the finance CL. You see, this is finance access list, right? 4 elements. So the first one is denying, is permitting access to, yeah, which makes sense, right? The second line is denying access to, is it? Yeah, so this is the first line, I think. Yeah, so this is the first line. This is the second line, which denies access to their Frankfurt DC. And the third is denying access to, this probably will make some mistake here. This is 192. Where's the access list again? There's a mix up here. So this is not accurate. The subnet is actually 10 dots. It's not even 10 dots. I think it's the show run objects, where there's a history to this topology. So you might not understand. This is actually the subnet for the, remember we are doing overlapping NAT here. So this is actually the IP that is being NACted. Okay, so this is actually the destination for this location. So that's the point I'm trying to correct here. So what we need to do is to go back to the access list and then say we want to deny access to this subnet actually. Okay, so if I say show run access list, yeah, so yeah, this is correct, but this is wrong, so we remove this. Okay, and then we can then remove this and just re-add it, just like we did. No, this, and then put it back. Okay, if I say show run access list, yeah, so we should be good with the access list now. So currently, so on the access list, we are permitting the VPN to access this corporate network, and then we are denying access to, should be denied. Oh my God. So it's better to do it on Notepad. So grab this. Let's just do it from the Notepad. And so we're going to say no this, no, and then no, and then let's put it back. So here, should be, so these two networks should be denied, right? And this should also be denied. Okay, deny IP. And yeah, so we can just paste everything back. Okay, and yep, show run access list. Yeah, so I believe we are good now. So permit to this subnet, then deny, and then this allows it to the internet. Okay, so we fix the access list. So we need to take this access list now and put it on the VPN filter. Okay, the group lock. So here it needs to have a value. It's got a value. We need to add a value here. Then the group lock has to be the tunnel group. Okay, so put this here, and then yeah, so we don't need this. Shouldn't be, so we don't need this here. We don't need it for the IPv6. This is the default there, so this is just what we're adding to the group policy. So where is the group policy again? Yeah, so just grab this here and put it here. Okay, so we don't need this. This is already there, and then we can just copy these three things, and so we are just adding some features to the group policy to meet our solution. So if I say show run or group policy, and the group policy is finance policy. Okay, so as you can see, we've tied in the access list. We have also, yeah. So with that, I think we should be good with the with our implementation now. And what else? Anything we need to add? I'm not sure. So let's just double check everything again. Show run tunnel group. It's there. Show run group policy. It's there. Show run username. Is there. Show run pool. I don't think it's supported. So just a show run pipe include pool. Is there. Show run web VPN. It's also there, right? So this is very important. Be sure that it's enabled on the outside interface, and yeah. So now it's time to test, right? Let's test. Let's go back to our topology. So here we are, and then we need to check our VPN connection. So I'm going to bring up the Windows computer that we have. Expand this. Okay, just VPN do his thing. So let's first of all confirm we have reachability to the firewall. So if I do IP config, so you see I'm also part of the subnet that is tied to the public interface of the ASA. The ASA is 192.168.1.30, and here we are 192.168.1. So I should be able to ping the ASA 192.168.1.30. It's good. So we need to pop out the browser, and then we can say take me to 192.168.1.30. Okay, so okay, so it's taking me there. So I'm going to hit advance. Yeah, so this looks good. Okay, now we are being prompted to authenticate, right? So but the question is, what are we authenticated to which tunnel profile? I know right now we just have one tunnel profile, but let's say we have up to 5 or 10 tunnel profiles. How do you know the tunnel profile to connect to? Now we need to add some features. So we need to come back to the tunnel group. I think is the tunnel group. So this is the tunnel group. Under the tunnel group attributes, right? So under tunnel group attributes, there's something called the alias. Alias group alias. So I think we need to say alias. So I'm not quite sure where it should be, but one way we can look for it, we can say show run all tunnel group. I think it should be under the web VPN attributes. Okay, so yeah, it should be somewhere here. Okay, so I need to grab this, right? Go to the tunnel group. So normally you won't see the config there, so I'm just going to say for this tunnel group, web VPN attributes, right? So I don't think there's a hierarchy to it, but we can just add everything here. Okay, web VPN attribute, then we can say, is it group? Yeah, group alias, yeah. So this is where it should be. So what we are trying to configure here is this, right? We want the tunnel group name to show up here so that users know which tunnel group they are connected to. Finance know that, oh, I'm actually going to connect to finance group, right? So I'm just going to call it, let's see, what's the question mark? Yeah, we just need to give it a name. I think we can just simply call it finance VPN. Okay, and then enable. Okay, so let's save. And if I come here and do the refresh, I'm not sure. So let's go back. Still doesn't show up. So we also need to add it to the web VPN attribute. So under show run web VPN, okay. Under the web VPN, so I need to come here and say group list. Let's say group question mark. Not group policy. So it should be, let's do a question mark tunnel. Let's see if there's anything close to, yeah, so this is it. Yeah, so tunnel group list, right? Let's do a question mark. It's a enable, right? So what this does is we are enabling the drop down, right? That allows you to see the different tunnel groups that exist, right? So let's go back to the ASA again. Exactly. Okay, so currently we only have one tunnel group and it's showing up here now. So what we just need to do is log in. So I'm going to come here and say the username was Deep Sky. Oh, that's the password. The username was what? Finance, right? And the password was Deep Sky. Okay, login. So it's going to the ASA is going to automatically say that, oh, we are not coming with the AnyConnect VPN. We should come with the AnyConnect VPN, right? So it's going to scan through our system and detect which operating system we are using, and it's going to ask us to download the client. So the client that is being downloaded now is the one we installed here, right? So this package is being downloaded into our system, and then once it's in our system, it's going to ask us to install it. Okay, so I'm going to hit download for Windows. So the download is going to start. I'm going to pause the video a bit. Okay guys, the download is completed, so we can just go ahead and install. Okay, so it's probably just going to take a while. Now the installation is pretty straightforward. You don't really need to, so just accept the license and then click on install. Hit install. Yeah, so hit yes. And finish. Okay, so it looks like we probably installed it multiple times, so just hit finish. So it should pop up here, or we can search for it. Okay, it's even here already. And then we just enter the IP, right? The IP of the ASA and hit connect. Okay, so it's saying, so you know the way SSL works, right? The exchange certificate, and then the certificate is of course on the ASA self-signed. So here it's going to say it's not trusted. We know it's self-signed, so we can click continue. So you said tunnel, the drop down pops up as well. So I just need to enter the password and hit OK. So if everything is correct, we should now have access to the tunnel. Should be set up. I said AnyConnect was not able to look connection securely. Please try again. I think this probably be. Let's try again. Oh, I think I could see what the problem is. Click OK. Let's see. Okay, AnyConnect was not able to access to the specified security. Please try again. So let me go back and check something. So I'm going to say show run tunnel group. Yeah, my might just got to this point that we did not apply the pool to the tunnel group. Okay. So I'm just going to come here, right, and then say show run pool. Type include pool. I thought we did that, so I'm just going to say tunnel pool. The command should be address pool. Yeah, I thought we did that. Address pool. So the address pool should be finance pool. Okay. Yeah. So show run tunnel group. Yeah, so the pool is there now. Okay, so let's go back and check. So it looks like it was trying to get an IP, but no IP. So sometimes it tells you the reason that it's unable to obtain an IP, but in this case, I'm not sure it showed us. Okay, hit enter. Let's see. Yes, so we are good. So that was the problem with the VPN. Okay, so if I come here now and say, if I come and say IP config, right? So you see we have an IP from that pool. Okay, and at the same time, if I do route prints, which is like the routing table for this Windows. So as you can see, yeah, so everything, we're tunneling all the traffic, right? So because we're tunneling all the traffic, everything goes to the gateway. So this gateway is on the ASA, right? So, and look at the metric. So this is the preferred, has a lower metric compared to the others, right? The other default gateways is it has a metric of 25. So this means all traffic goes to the gateway, which is on the ASA. Now, if you also go to the ASA and say show route for 192.168.50.0, you see there's actually a routing table. There's a route entry, let me put it that way, right? And it's indicated with V for this subnet. Okay, so this IP is the allocated IP to our computer, right? And then the ASA is saying for me to reach this IP, I'm going to go over the tunnel. I think that's what is indicated with the V, okay? But the question is, what can we reach? So if we come here, can we go to the internet? No. Okay, we can get to the internet. Can we even get to our local servers, which is this? No. Okay, so of course we are not done. The solution is not complete. We need to do some additional tweaking here, right? Like we need to implement the help pinning for turning off traffic. So traffic comes here, the gateway goes out to the internet, and then we also need to tell this subnet, this servers, that to reach this user's laptop, we need to do some NAT configurations, things like NAT exempt. We need to do some NAT implementation, and then we need to do some additional testing, right? But I'll have to pause the video here, and then I'll see you the next session. If you like this video and you want to see stuff like this, you want to subscribe to the channel. And of course, when I make new videos like this and we look at this kind of real world scenarios, you'll be able to see it firsthand, and then we'll all learn together from it. Okay, thank you. See you in part 2 of this video. Bye-bye.